Being 7 o'clock, I'm gonna bring the Dunbarton Board of Selectmen meeting to order, Thursday, January 28th, 2021. Town administrators present, all three selectmen are present. Leo Martell is recording for the public, and Linda Nickerson's gonna upload it to the YouTube and the county website. We have the cemetery chair trustee here, Don Larson. We have Woody Bowen here, transfer station manager. And we have Christopher Remillard, the police fire sergeant, is it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, first thing we have on the thing is some old business.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular minutes of January 21st as written.
Second.
Okay, motion been made, second, any conversation about it? Okay, motion been made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
And I'll give a motion to approve the non-public minutes of January 21st as written.
Okay. Motion's been made. I'll second Bob's motion. So, motion's been made, second, any discussion on that?
Clean.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. All right, those two are done. Next thing, I'm gonna open it up for a quick public comment. Nothing from anybody that's not on the agenda, okay? Close that.
You got one right there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
And this is a public comment. Don Larson, 32 Birchview Drive. This is in regards to the lights out here in the common. I did a little survey on the Dunbarton page, and you can see I put it on there on the 25th, and you can say a lot of people responded, and a lot of them want the lights left on until March 31st. And so I know that we said the 31st of January. There's two sides to on all those. And I think there was only one negative, Bob Moore. I don't know who he is, but otherwise everybody is for it.
Hey, Don, why did you not bring this up? I mean, we mentioned 31st, you had no objections, you obviously did not like our decision. So you go to the public, solicit comments to overturn a decision we made a couple weeks ago. Did you not like our decision, or you just think that we don't know how to run the town? Thank you.
No. Not that.
Thing is, you make it like, we make a decision, then you have to go do an end run on the select board, and I don't think that's right. We don't run the town by putting your finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing all the time.
No, I realize that.
But the thing is, what you're doing is you're undermining the board by doing this, that's my
I
opinion.
apologize.
You know, I'm looking at this. How about the neighbors? Did anybody check with them to see about the lights? Cause we used to have one neighbor that complained about the lights being the wrong way pointing toward their house, you know, I'm just curious.
Well, Ann was on there, Zeller, and she'd just like to have the lights, the Christmas lights off the bandstand. And we plan on doing that next week, when it warms up a little bit.
I just wanna make sure you checked with the neighbors, cause that, you know,
Right.
is, I'm looking at a lot of names that aren't even in that area. Of course, it doesn't bother them, cause they drive by at night, but they're not there at night. And there was one particular that didn't like the lights glaring in there. If you remember, we had to decide on what kind of light we're gonna have out there, so that the light wouldn't point at their home.
I see quite a few, the majority of them say leave them on. But there are two or three in here that do say shut them off.
Alright.
I don't know how many in total that are here, I'm just going down through it. Some think that we shouldn't be leaving them on because, for the taxpayers. although they do respect first responders, it says, so.
Tom Casano feels that it's about $15 a month for to run the lights.
I'm thinking it's a decision that's already made, and I don't think it's a decision that really needs to come back. We only get a few more days in this month, but, I guess I'll take a consensus from the rest of the board at this point. Bob, what do you think?
Well,
Do you wanna reconsider it, or just leave it as a decision as it was stands?
Can I just bring up a comment?
Let me
So,
have Bob finish first, and
the
then I'll.
group that put the lights up, or the garden club, they offered a lot of their time. The individual that was assigned to reach out to you folks, she went through me, and then he and Dawn happened to bring it up during the meeting, so the discussion was made through Dawn. She called me earlier in the week for another,
Item.
assessing something else, and then she asked how, what you guys had decided with the lights, and I said, well, Don already brought it up, so you should have brought it back to your board or your group. And she said, oh, no, I guess I missed that, and she said, but we had all been thinking that because of the time of the year, the cold, the ice on the wires, they didn't wanna cause damage to the wiring, and they thought maybe if it could go a little bit longer, that they would have less chance of somebody slipping, hurting, and damaging. So I don't know if that's plays a factor at all, but there was just something that was brought to me from another individual from the same group.
I see. Well, I'm gonna let you finish first.
well, I was gonna say, and I know it may rub some people the wrong way, there may be an extension to the end of February. I can't see it going into March, because March, you're gonna be changing the clocks again. And you're gonna be having them on later on at night, cause it's gonna be, you're gonna have gained another hour, you know? Which puts the onus on, like I said, even though someone wants them off the bandstand, there may be somebody else that's gonna wonder why the lights are still on, you know?
Okay, I'm gonna come to Mike, then I'll go to you real good, Mike.
I just think this mechanism of just, asking which way the wind is blowing by asking on social media, it does not represent the population. We're the representatives of the population. I think Dawn is wrong for doing this, and I'm getting tired of, being, supplanted. I mean, we're gonna run the decisions of the town by public opinion. I just think this is wrong.
Right.
Because the decision was made by the board, and there was no discussion, no pushback, and all of a sudden, we're gonna do a poll, because we don't like your decision, Selectmen, and we're gonna see if we can overturn it by public opinion. Well, if we make a decision on the budget, are we gonna have a same thing? Or, Dawn, if you don't like anything else, are you gonna go to Facebook and say, change this, change that, because you don't like the way we made a decision? I just feel this is insulting. To me personally, as a select board, and you're undermining your elected officials here. In other words, I have no real, if it went to March, I would really have no issue with that. It's the way you're doing it. You don't do it by public opinion like that all the time. A decision was made, why didn't you debate it, have more people come and debate it the day we made the decision? It's like you're going behind our backs and saying, well, we don't like your decision, so we're gonna change it.
Well, people were calling and asking for him to stay on, and so that's the reason I did the poll, to see if more people felt that way. So that's the reason, and I could come in here and say, well, there's 5 people that wanted to do it, but, you know, we got calls, and, you know, so that's the reason I did the poll, is to find out what the temperature was on that.
Yeah.
So,
You
I
didn't do it
didn't
with
mean
any-
to undermine you, but I wanted to be able to give you some collateral to show you, you know, how people felt about the lights. And, Ann Zeller is the only one that, you know, she likes the lights and everything, and I think it makes the common safer, you know, especially at night, and that, for people there. You know, we've got all the cords, everything's on timer, so when, you know, you know, right now they go on at 4:30, we'll make it 5:30 here real soon, because it's still light and that, and, you know, they go off at 10, so, it's, you know, coming into the center here from my place in that way, to see the lights, or it just makes you feel good. You know,
Okay,
so-
let me go to Leo, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, again, I agree with Mike, number one, because the decision was made, that should be respected. Otherwise, down the road, it could be something else. They're saying March 31st, could be June 1st. We don't know anymore. I think the decision was made, it should be respected. As far as worrying about the ice, well, they didn't think it was gonna be icy in January when they asked to extend it to January? I don't get that one.
Right.
So my attitude is, it's been on this long, I'm not on Facebook, I would be against leaving them on all the time, but regardless of that, I'm not on Facebook, there are lots of other people who aren't on Facebook, and a lot of people don't even bother with that stuff. Okay, so I think that your decision should have been respected, and that's the way I see it, because again, as I said, then March 31st, they can come back and say, how about we leave them on till June? You know, it's just, you guys are the guys who making the decisions, that should be the end of that.
You know, actually, this should have been done earlier on though, so you could come and present it when you were making your argument to keep the lights on and show us what is out there that's supporting it. Cause you come in 2 days, 2 or 3 days before the end of the month, which is,
Yeah. I do agree with Bob, this is a little bit late in the point, because we made our decision several weeks ago. But I do wanna take in light the fact that Lean said that, you know, this was brought up when Don just happened to be at one of our meetings, it wasn't really something he brought on the agenda, but as Lean said, the person that actually would control the taking up and putting down of them has asked her about how it is. We kinda took that up earlier, but it really wasn't something that, the person that did the lights
well, the
had asked us
program was to
take up.
continue to keep the lights on
Right,
for a period of time. And you know, it's unfortunate that this wasn't done earlier on
right,
to be used as evidence as to why you wanted to keep them on for a certain amount of time and present it that way. Cause we had to make a decision on what was in front of us, and it was, you know, when we said a month, everybody left that it was okay, and now it isn't okay. You follow me? It doesn't, you know,
Mike,
it's a
Dave,
conflict.
I think Mike actually said, okay, but don't come back and say, move the date, that meeting, if I remember that part, if you wanna check the video out, but, so, here they are, January 31st, asking to extend it.
right. Well,
I like to, I think we should come to a reasonable compromise here. I'm leaning towards what Bob said, maybe to the end of February, I think that'd be a reasonable compromise. Because I'm thinking, I'm leaning that way right now, I'd like to hear any more discussion or any more ideas.
Can I make a recommendation? If the ground is clear and there's no snow in the forecast, and it's a good time for them to get a group together, then they should do it. But if you say the 28th of February and we get 3 feet of snow, are you gonna expect them to be taking those?
no, they can unplug them.
Tell them just unplug them.
They
Okay,
can take them down in the spring, they can unplug them so they're not lit
Yeah.
up.
yeah, okay.
You know, I
As
don't
long
care
as
when
that's
those are
clear.
taken down, as long as they're taken down at a reasonable time in the spring, but, I was gonna, as the chair, come up with a consensus that we leave our original decision alone, only because it was already made, but if you and Bob feel like you guys wanna go to the end of February, I have no problem with that either. I mean, the lights, I do think it looks beautiful, I think we're gonna, you know, be looking at those pictures of lights for a lot of years to come. I was gonna leave our original decision alone because it was made, and there seemed to be some strong feelings about that, so I guess I'll take a consensus of the board and just go, and just give me your dates, and then we'll move on from this subject.
Well, you know, I don't have a problem with leaving them on till the end of February, except that the only thing that irks me is this evidence should have been presented, and that they should have done the research before they came and asked for a date. So, you know, I could go either way. I don't care if it's the 31st of January, but I'm offering as interim to go to the end of February, and that's it. There's no extension.
Okay. What about you, Mike, what do you wanna do the end of
I do
February?
wanna go to February with the caveat, there's no extensions thereafter. Anything is, and I just think we should look at this as a lesson learned for the future as we go forward. before, if you're gonna come back and try to challenge a decision, before the decision's made, we should have more facts in order. Look at it as a lesson learned, and we'll go forward from there.
Okay, it seems like we have a consensus from the board to meet you halfway, and we'll go to February 28th on the lights being left on in the common.
They'll
But
be
like the board said,
March
you could-
first, we'll take the timers off and
Yep.
the lights will be out.
yeah,
Okay.
and, so the board has met you part way, but we'd just like to, in the future, try and get some of this evidence when they come for the date to remove stuff, so that we're not,
It's
going
all
in
new to
circles.
us. It's all new to us in that.
And I don't think there was any ill intent to what you did, it's just, you know, the board would like to try and make decisions with all the
Yeah.
information, the one night, and move on, and keep it rolling, you know?
It makes it look like we erred when we didn't, you know, and anytime if someone's coming to us to present something, they should bring all the information they have, so we make that decision, and it's a final decision. Cause it looks like we're backstepping every time we do something.
I think we did this the end of December. Yeah, time flies.
It sure does. All right, thank you, Don.
All right,
Anything else
thank you.
for the, for public comment, or are we good at public comment? Okay, thank you, Don. Okay, we had a couple of discussions for our road agent Jeff Crosby. More to do with the, Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests and the Winslow Town Forest. He has notified me that the Town Forest Committee is gonna make a written proposal to us for next week's meeting. So I'd like to move that on the agenda to the following week for a proper decision. And, so we'll go to the next item on our agenda, which is Chris Remlett's here to discuss the department vehicle fleet. Chris, I wanna thank you for sending an email out earlier in the week so we could look at the quantity of vehicles you have.
You have one?
I have one,
Excellent.
thank you.
I hope the spreadsheet was helpful. I wanted to try and give you something that was concise, it didn't take up too much time, but also provided information that I thought the board might be looking for. Certainly, if there's any specific questions or concerns, I'd be happy to address them.
Well, Chris, I'll tell you, I gotta apologize, I was off the week that you guys did your proposal for your
Okay.
budget for this year.
Yep.
So when I came back and looked at that warrant article for the vehicle, it kinda threw me off guard a little bit, so I kinda wanted to have you come in and explain that, and I'll tell you the reasons why. I was the one last year that tried to set up that capital reserve fund for the police department, like every other department
Right.
has. So I wanted to try and fund that,
Yes.
so that we could use that along with the additional money you have from your, what do you call those?
The special duty
Detail.
funds. Yep.
Detail, yeah.
So I want to be able to fund those vehicles on a regular basis, hopefully every 2 years.
Right.
And we got a new vehicle last year, and we had talked about that.
Yep.
And now I see another vehicle on this year, so I just wanted some description and some communication about that.
Absolutely.
And, try and review that again.
Sure, sure. So if it's okay with the board, I'll kind of go vehicle by
Yeah,
vehicle
that'd be great.
briefly. So D1, that was put in service in 2012.
Mhm.
So that was the vehicle that was replaced with the new vehicle this year, but we retained D1 because it still has some life left in it.
Mhm.
And if we were to sell that at auction, we felt that the benefit of keeping that to use for police details and as a backup vehicle far outweighed selling it at auction.
Yeah,
The radio in it is obsolete, meaning that it's no longer being manufactured, so if we need parts or pieces for it, we have to cross our fingers and get lucky on eBay.
right.
But just the same with the Crown Victoria, which is the 2008 D5, once those vehicles are no longer viable to maintain financially and or can't pass inspection, those will be sold or traded at auction.
Okay,
I think with D5, you can see that it has 116,000 miles on it, it's a 2008. I don't think that that's gonna pass inspection this coming year. So if that vehicle does not pass inspection and gets sold, having D1 as the, the detail car, Well, essentially that will take the place of D5, the Crown Vic,
Okay.
and still allow us to generate that revenue for the town without using our newer vehicles and putting wear and tear on the newer vehicles.
Yeah, which is a great idea to keep those older vehicles just idling at those details.
Yeah, and you know, they really don't owe us anything, they already have all of the equipment in them, you know,
Yeah.
D1 and D5, we did some mechanical work over the last couple of years to keep them going. Going down the line with D2 and D3, you'll see that those are both 2017 Ford Interceptors. One was put in service in 2016, that's assigned to me, and that's garaged.
What does that mean, garaged?
I keep it in my garage at home.
Okay.
So none of our vehicles, with the exception of my assigned vehicle, are garage. And the reason I put that in there is we try to do that for the purpose of longevity of the vehicle. I had D1 before I was assigned D3, and I think some of the reason why D1 is still on the road is because it's not, you know, subjected to sitting outside 24/7. D4, that's, I know Mike is intimately familiar with that, having ridden in it before. That's the Chief's 2008 Ford Taurus sedan. The only reason that passed inspection back in September is because the chief actually did his own body work and patched a fairly sizable rust hole on the passenger side. That may not pass inspection this upcoming September, and that's the vehicle that we're looking to replace with the proposed warrant coming into March. So there's a couple scenarios. The chief ultimately, he's stubborn with that vehicle. He wanted me to convey that. He wants to be able to use that until he retires in January of '22. The reality is it may not pass inspection this coming September, and if that's a reality, he'll
Probably
probably...
a few months.
Right. So he'll probably have to use D1 until the new vehicle comes in, because, you know, from March, if that warrant article is approved, to when we order the vehicle, do the upfit, using D6 as an example from 2020, that was passed, and that wasn't in service until December. So there's a pretty significant, you know, about 8-9 month lag time between getting the vehicle, doing the upfit, and putting it in service, so. And then D6 is obviously our brand new car, the 2020 Ford Interceptor SUV. So I just tried to, with the key takeaways, like I said, just try and provide a summary of the older vehicles, you know, the '08 Crown Vic, which is the detail car, the '08 sedan for the chief's vehicle, and then the 2012 SUV.
Now, I typically see at least two when I'm going by of the SUVs there.
Yep.
Are those the two patrol officers on duty that day?
Yeah, so it depends on the day, so generally, I drive D3, which is one of the 2017s.
Yeah, so you'll bring that in, so we'll see that there.
Yep, you'll see that there, and then depending on, we assign the vehicles to officers based on their shift, and the idea behind that is we want all of the vehicles getting equal use and equal mileage and equal hours during the week, so we're not front-loading one vehicle and neglecting another, because then we'll have a huge disparity with mileage, and you can see, you know, with D2 and D3, I mean, those are both pretty close in mileage. And then D6 is the newest car. So yeah, generally you'll see either 236 at the station, and then D1, that's the older SUV, and that's what we're using as an assigned detail car. I tried to put some miscellaneous notes. You'll see, I think the longevity for D1 is maybe 1 to 3 years, which is a good thing, because like I said, I don't think the Crown Vic is gonna pass inspection this coming September. So having that alternate vehicle as a detail car to still bring in money while reducing the wear and tear on our main vehicles, not using those for details, that's a huge advantage to the agency and to the town.
Radio's interchangeable.
Radios are interchangeable, but we did a radio upgrade project, I believe, starting in 2014. The chief had started that.
And we've been doing them as you go along.
Yeah, with each car that we upfit, mobile radios are generally between $5,000 and $6,000. So the mobile radios that are in the chief's car, the Crown Vic, and the 2012 SUV, those are all the obsolete radios. So we wouldn't seek to replace those radios with new radios, because the reality is that the cost of the radio would probably outweigh the value of the vehicle, which is kind of crazy to think, but that's kind of where we're at with technology and the cost of radios now.
Right.
So, you know, I think in reality, towards the end of the year, you probably won't see the sedan, the Taurus or the Crown Vic passing inspection. I mean, they may, but
So the new car, if it came in, is pretty much gonna be the chief's car,
that's
whoever
correct.
the chief may be.
Yes, it'll be assigned to the chief of police, yeah, yeah.
Lean, do you have the warrant article just of this car?
I'm gonna look at it.
Okay, cause I had asked for that, I thought it was in
Yeah.
here, but I
Yep,
looked
no,
through everything.
didn't print it.
And I did take a look, because I know the town, and I'm not very well versed in it, I'm trying to read up on it and learn it, but, it looks like the last thing I could find for the CIP was in 2018, about vehicles.
Yeah,
police
it was
vehicles.
brand new, so you wouldn't have seen it any earlier than that, I don't think.
Okay, alright, so I think, as we update these, we'll be able to have a better idea. I think, every 2 years is definitely a very realistic approach to replacements, especially if you factor in the special duty fund and then whatever, the voters decide to put in the capital reserve.
Right,
And in theory, and I do like that idea because, if we have a good detail year and we have the capital reserve money, it should, have a very minimal, if any, impact on taxes.
right. Yeah, I wanted to be able to do that so I could look at the funding of that and make sure that we're on schedule to do it.
Number 9.
And then we'll look at the proper, capital reserve amount that you think you need and
Yeah.
make it all work. So number 9 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $54,000, and the last one was 53, so that hasn't changed much. New police cruiser with equipment, installation equipment, the fund the appropriate will withdraw $22,000 from special duty, which last time you had enough in there so you could pull 40,000, so you
Right.
get 22 from there. Fund established with special town meeting on May 9, 2008. The remaining $32,000 to come from taxation. Last time, we took 13,000 out of our surplus. Because we tried to, last year we tried a new theory out to pay for most of the warrant articles by surplus, instead of just reducing the tax rate at the end. But we found that in doing so, we had to explain to our constituents, the voters and the residents, how we were going about doing that, and it seemed more confusing than it was worth doing, so we're gonna go back the other way and let these stand on their own with a dollar value attached to them and let them vote on them, and then we'll use the balance of money to bring down the whole taxation amount.
Sure.
It's the same money going in, it just doesn't look like there's a $0 amount.
Right, understood.
Something. So your impact is 8 cents on the 32,000. So the vehicles are roughly the same price.
Yeah, we went for the state bid on the Ford SUV. We felt, the chief and I had talked about that, and he tasked me with, selecting the vehicle and doing the upfit. I think the SUV, just for the type of town Dunbarton is a little more, realistic than the sedan. And, the equipment, I got, some bids and everything, from different companies, and, should this warrant pass, I believe we'll be going with the same company that we used for our most recent outfit.
Yeah.
We were very impressed with not only their turnaround time, but their technical skill. We had an issue that arose with, one of the mechanics within the vehicle, and they were out within 2 days. They drove out from Newington and fixed it, no cost.
Okay.
And when we picked up the vehicle, they took the time to explain, all the different settings, because basically everything now that they do with the lighting and the light bars is all by computer.
Right.
It's all computer programming, and the technician was very, very competent and took the time to explain to us precisely what he did, why he did it. So we were very impressed with this company, and the graphics came out fantastic as well.
Now, just to review the next warrant articles, it has to do the same vehicle. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the police vehicle equipment capital reserve fund established in 2020 for this purpose. And is summarized in the capital improvement program. So we've got you at 10, so if we did a car every 2 years, we'd obviously have 20 there. And it looks like we'll be right on line, because if you took 22,000 out of your special detail and we took 40 out of it last year, you'd have 20 in there each year, so you'd have approximately $60,000 to draw from. So I think that everything is earmarked just about right including a small increase for the vehicle.
Right.
Is there a definite need for this vehicle for this year?
I would say so, only because the possibility of it not passing inspection is pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, there is always, if the warrant doesn't pass, you know, we could always use D1, but then that takes D1, meaning the chief could use D1, but then that takes away D1's ability to make money, because I don't think the Crown Vic is gonna pass inspection, so we're kind of playing hopscotch with the cars a little bit, but we're trying to maintain our fleet that's in good condition, and then use the fair and the poor vehicles on the details, so,
Dumb question here. Normally you have how many police officers on duty at any one time? Not including the chief.
generally, 2.
So 2 officers would need 2 patrol cars, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and then the chief brings his in, so
All
there's
right,
3 there.
But let's not talk about the chief, just for a minute. So I have, right now, we have, I see D2, D3, and D6.
Correct.
That's 3 patrol cars,
Correct.
and there's only 2 officers on duty at any one time.
Right.
So, where's the need? Sure, I see the chief's car, this is for the chief's car's replacement, but, in the event that chief doesn't get a car, would one of the other, since it's only 2, the 3rd car could be the chief's car as an interim basis until next year. I'm looking at worst case
Yep,
scenario.
worst case scenario, we could probably make that work, yeah.
Okay, and that way, that way we would follow the 2-year program as set out by Dave, as you suggested. And
You don't, how come you didn't get bumped up into the 2020 D6 is what I'm wondering? When it came in, how come the vehicles just don't go down there?
Well, I
See, the
had,
chief wanted to keep his, obviously, his Taurus for this year.
yep,
Shouldn't you have bumped from the D3 garage car to the D6?
I had D1,
Yeah,
and then I moved up, I guess you could say,
to D3,
to
right?
D3, correct. And we're-
Shouldn't you have moved down to D6 now?
I mean, generally when we get the newer cars, those go to the patrol officers to use, and not the supervisory staff.
So they can race around a little bit better than me.
It's just, you know, I can appreciate that question, Mike. I think, you know, looking at, if you look at the breakdown of, you know, D5 is really out of the equation, because we don't use that on
correct,
patrol
I
at
agree,
all.
I agree. And
So-
that's, let's say we just scratch D5, not passing inspection.
Right,
Scratch D6 too, because that's really just an end of year vehicle, it's not really a patrol vehicle either.
No, D6, not D6, D4.
D4.
D, correct,
yeah.
D4, yeah.
D4 and D5, I already scratched them and I did the,
And then I scratch, then I say
D1 scratch too.
D1 scratch too, because that's usually, that'd be the one, moneymaker.
So, we've got D2, D3, and D6 left.
Right.
And the thing is, I would probably put one of them towards the chief, as the chief's replacement. And the other 2 would be the patrol cars, worst case scenario.
Right, worst case scenario, yeah, yeah.
And then the following year, that way we keep on track of 2020, 2022, another vehicle purchased. I'm open to thoughts, Bob, anything?
I'm looking at the, looking at the mileage on it, and I can understand why, if you're in the administrative position versus the patrolling, so that's probably why they're using, the D6 car, cause you get lower mileage, they're gonna put on mileage,
Mhm.
but they're not gonna, you're using a car that's got high mileage,
Right.
and it's gonna have less mileage, so,
And I'm trying to take the older vehicles to prolong the longevity as well.
you're kinda stuck, cause you have 2 vehicles that are in poor condition,
Correct.
and one that's in fair condition, which doesn't take long to go to poor condition.
Yeah.
So I'm just concerned with, you know, we wanna get on a track where you're replacing them every 2 years, and that's understandable, but
I
with
thought
the mix you have right here,
Right.
it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look palatable.
I think, you know, with D3, so the sergeant's position has a assigned car, so you're correct. If I'm working my shift with a patrol officer, that leaves 1 patrol vehicle sitting at the station. However, when I'm not working and there's 2 patrol officers working, there needs to be 2 patrol cars at the station. So there are still days during the week where, for example, D2 and D6 are both in use at the same time.
Correct. Okay.
But that's okay that they're in use at the same time.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, when we did that car in 2020, I mean, the chief came, I'm the one that set up this program for the, I'm like, why aren't you like every other department, so we set this up.
Yep.
And he said at the time we could go every 2 years, and it was good replacement policy. I didn't mind playing catch-up last year to do it, and I guess if you're telling us the only way to do it again is to catch up one more year, I don't have a huge problem with it. I wanted to know, what your thoughts were with it, and also, I would think that, it'd be nice for the chief to run that vehicle for a year, feel it out, as you get the new ones in, or 2 years, and then turn it over and let them put the miles on it then even,
Yep.
I don't think there's anything matter with the chief riding, and I like the fact that it's not another unmarked car.
Right.
We've talked about that in the past, I like people to be able to see the police officers use the force for what it's made for, to serve and protect, and, so I do like that fact that it's not an unmarked car.
And I think the thing too with the chief's vehicle, just by virtue of being assigned to one person, if we decide to pull the trigger and propose this warrant, you're probably gonna get a solid 8 to 10 years out of it.
Right.
Out of that one vehicle.
Right.
So that's the other thing to consider is, if you look at D4, I mean, that's been in service for 13 years. Granted, it is on its last leg for sure, but I think, looking at it from the longevity standpoint of if we replace this vehicle now, we're certainly gonna have it for quite some time. It's gonna be assigned to just simply one officer, one
It was
person.
D4, when is that inspection in this, 21?
They're due every September.
Oh, they're in September?
Yeah,
okay.
September, yep, yep.
So they're gonna get the majority of the year out of them too, anyway, Bob, and then,
Forrest, I'm looking at poor doesn't mean that it's gonna run right all year
And
long.
the problem is, there's a lead time too, you just can't go into a lot and buy a car.
Right.
Lead time.
Yeah, it takes, I mean, with using our latest car as an example, it was a solid, from the time of town meeting to in service was about 9 months. So if we put this off and we decide to propose this in 2022,
It's
the
really-
reality is that vehicle probably would not be in, it might be a little bit easier because
last
it's,
quarter of the.
yeah, it could be middle towards the end of 2022.
Second to
that
third
vehicle,
quarter.
yeah.
Another dumb, silly question, but special duty, we had 22,000 in that fund, does that
Yeah.
represent 1 year of, approximately 1 year of?
We didn't quite empty it, Mike, so
Yeah.
it was very close, but
If
Is this been a good year for you, or special duty has been, I think, kinda
It's-
slow?
It was a little bit slow because of COVID. I believe we brought in just shy of 11,000 for the use of vehicles on police details. However, the administrative surcharge that we brought in was, I think, close to the $20,000 range, and that's the $15 an hour. That's for details when there's not a car assigned. So, total, I think our income from working details was somewhere around 30, maybe a little bit less than that, which is not a great year, it's not a terrible year, but there have been years past where we brought in 20, 25, just in the vehicle use.
I'll cover the price increases.
Yeah.
so if you had 30 and there was a little left from last time, why'd you only pull 22 from it?
I'm not sure.
We only left a couple grand in that
Yeah.
account when,
Okay,
when
so it
we,
wasn't quite 30 this year.
when we
then.
put that, number together. Pam does not like to have that fund reduced to,
Or it probably was 30, but part of it goes to us.
no, there's, the admin line is a
Yeah.
separate account. The vehicle, line is a separate account, they're all different liability accounts, so
Yeah.
it makes it easy to track. The admin line covers, the cost associated with taxes and insurance and other things, so there's,
But with the capital reserve at 10 and them at about 20 a year, Mike, every other year covers the vehicle almost,
That's what I'm saying,
paid
yeah.
for as a part of the schedule.
Because when you look at this, you've got, fare isn't great. You got
Right.
2 and a fare, and it doesn't take long for fare to become
Right.
poor either,
And this is probably gonna be a year where the vehicle takes longer because of the COVID crisis going around, because like even our town truck took almost a full year, maybe a little longer even to get.
Yeah. And I think, the good part about D1 is I think it does still have some life left, and when that Crown Vic inevitably is no longer serviceable, which I anticipate will be this year,
Yeah.
that can become the new primary detail car. So we still have a means of bringing in that money without killing our good vehicles, so to
Now,
speak.
what happens if D4 and D5 pass inspection? What's your contingencies for keeping those vehicles?
Well, they could keep using them for that, or they could sell them off, Mike, and put the money back towards radios or whatnot.
Yeah, there's, a couple different options.
They're not gonna be worth much money.
No.
I don't think
You'd be
so.
lucky to get $500 or $1,000 for them.
I think at state auction, we'd
But
see.
you'll be better off auctioning them off while they're running than
Yeah,
being hauled in.
Yeah, and that was kind of our thought, with D1 is, the money that can bring in as a detail car far outweighs what we could get for it at auction. At this point in time, there will be a point in time where if we get hit with a repair that's just not, worth far more than the actual value of the vehicle, then obviously we'll have to make
Now,
a
a little
decision.
bit of humor, you ready for some
I
humor?
am.
In other words, how's a driver of the Crown Vic gonna handle this?
Be fun. Okay. Good to go, good to go.
I guess being with the length of time, Chris, to get a vehicle in, I don't really have a problem, it doesn't affect our budget by a huge amount. I just wanted clarification, I wanted to go over and emphasis the every 2-year thing,
Right.
to be on a standard program with our taxpayers, so they kinda know it's kinda something that's in there, and we've got it budgeted, and we,
I can appreciate that 110%, and I think,
Are you gonna be talking to the warrant when it's presented?
if the chief wishes me to do so, absolutely, yeah.
I'd recommend it, yes.
Yep.
Okay, that's, I consensus, I'd recommend Chris talk to it.
you know,
I think you're very well versed with it, but the thing is, you're gonna have to summarize this in fewer sentences.
Yep.
And emphasize the fact that we have potentially 2 vehicles going down this year.
That's right.
and a third vehicle with a lot of miles on it that you're gonna
Right.
be using to
The thing is,
detail.
you're gonna have to be able to sell it within 3 or 4 minutes.
Yep, I will put some talking points together, and I think, I don't wanna speak for the chief or his ideas with regards to the CIP, but just looking at the mileage in our fleet, I could see us not coming back for a car in 22, and then coming back in 23, and starting that 2-year window,
Yeah.
there.
You know, there's always gonna be an occasional year where something happens, an accident, a total vehicle,
Right.
where you have to come in, but those are gonna be, unexpected situations, we're gonna deal with them as we come up to them.
Right,
The issue is that, as a voter, they're gonna see the fleet you have now.
absolutely,
And they're gonna challenge you on the fleet.
And-
Just like we're challenging you, but we're getting to the nitty gritty.
And that's-
You're not gonna have time in the town meeting to get to the nitty gritty.
right, and I understand, at face value, you see, holy moly, why do they need 6 cars? But when you break it down and realize that 2 of those cars are probably not gonna be in service much longer, and one of them has 142,000, but can still make money.
And you have part-timers also.
Right. So, and I can appreciate, the questions, and I'm glad that we could talk.
You don't start off by telling the chief had to do his own body work to bring it up to the safety standards.
I wanted to put it in there. He was up there working on his land, getting his car so he could pass, and he wants to ride that till the very end. He really does.
Well, he may not have a choice in this, come September.
True.
Well, if he's gonna live in town, he's gotta tighten the belt up. Okay, I think, one other quick question I had
Sure.
before I forget it. There is a service that I've been noticing, there's 3 or 4 now that have come up, where they put that military grade, oil on them. Woody
Yep.
probably knows the name of it.
The fluid film.
Yeah, the fluid
Yep.
film, being where we have newer vehicles here, do you think maybe we should look at maybe starting, we're gonna keep these, like you said, some 10, 12 years.
Yep.
And we have the older ones now that are actually rusting through, but still have low enough miles you could run them.
Right.
Do you think we should maybe look at that program this coming year and look into putting our newer vehicles into that program?
Absolutely, and I'll do you one better, Dave. We've actually been doing that for a couple years now.
Yeah.
We bring our entire fleet up to Lou's Custom Exhaust in Concord.
Oh, beautiful.
It's $150 per vehicle. They do a full fluid film on the undercarriage. And when I was talking with the outfitter for D6, our newest car, I guess Linex actually has some type of like Teflon material that they'll do underneath the vehicle, and it's supposed to last for the life of the vehicle. But we have been doing that just because of the salt and the sand and the rust. And
Yeah, I think the yearly fluid film that I see, cause it does get worn off in a year,
it does, yep.
and then if you put it back on.
Yep.
Now, the company that designed, that has the fluid film, shall I say, monopoly in New Hampshire.
Right.
Has a new product out there, it's only applicable on a brand new car.
Okay.
It's actually a wax sealant. the fluid film where they can't put the wax.
Yep.
But it's,
And it doesn't drip
it
either.
does, no dripping,
Yeah.
and it's, you only need a touch-up like every other year.
Nice, nice.
But it's, they do it right in Chichester.
They do it in Chichester and they do it in New Boston.
Yeah.
My son just had his new
But
truck.
the-
I'll look
wax-
into that
The wax, the
specifically.
wax is I got it in my new truck.
Nice,
I love it,
nice,
and the
yeah.
thing is, like, originally I was a fluid film type of guy,
Mhm.
but once you put fluid film, you can't put wax on it.
Right.
I'm a bar and chain type of guy, that never goes anywhere.
We picked up the new car in Newington, and the first place we literally drove it to was to get fluid films before
Oh,
we
good, I
put
didn't
it in
realize we
service.
did that, so that's great.
Yeah, that was the chief's idea, we've been doing that for I think the last 2 or 3 years, we rotate our entire fleet through once a year for that fluid film and going into the winter time.
But this wax is supposed to be, the people develop fluid film, develop this wax
I
product.
like that, yeah. I'll look into that, moving forward as we replace vehicles, if that's a
It's
better
gotta,
product.
it's gotta be done like almost within 2 weeks after delivery.
Yeah,
All right, I think that's all I have. Questions, the board have any other questions?
No?
Anybody from the public have questions? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you
Just-
for coming in, Chris.
Just be prepared.
I'll be prepared. Thank you.
Well, if they come up with any questions we didn't give you tonight, good luck.
Yeah, this is, I'm glad we could talk, and, I hope that provided some clarification.
It did, thank you much for coming in.
Thank you.
Tell the chief, where thoughts are with him too.
I sure will.
Okay,
I'll
thank
pass
you.
that on, I'll pass that on now. Thank you.
All right. Let's go through and review our final changes to the budgets. I think, revenues, expenses, and proposed tax impact rate. I think the revenues and expenses, we kinda went over pretty heavily already, but we'll let Lean touch on these through us.
Okay, so all I provided for you tonight, is the summary sheet
Yeah,
of the actual, the proposed budget and the surplus. So the surplus from, 2020 budget went down slightly, just a couple of $1,000, so that.
where are you, Lean?
The column that's called surplus at the very top. So you got 2020.
Okay, I see surplus, you're talking about the
Yeah.
291,775.
Correct, if you look at your notes from last week, that was probably about less than $2,000 more. So as the
Okay.
weeks go on and we find that there's a bill that comes in that was actually an expense from prior year, we'll post it into a separate journal. That, it reduced our surplus very slightly. So the new, surplus is 291,775. And then the proposed 2021 budget that I provided for you last week, it was brought to my attention that there was a discrepancy in the request from the library. She's asking for $9 more, so that number that's in that 2021 column, 2,713,248, is actually increased $9 from last week,
Okay,
okay? And then,
the 55,000, Lean?
55,000 is the increase over the 2020 approved budget. So the column all the way to the left, that's what the voters voted on, 2,658,202.
Yeah.
And what you are working with right now is the 2,713,248. That's an increase over 2020 for $55,046. That number
Okay.
changed slightly again between the $9 and that's pretty much it.
Okay, and when I'm looking at 2020 excess revenue of 77,000,
That would be on the revenue side. The line right above it is the remaining 2020 budget, which is
I
291,775.
thought we were putting 70,000 on the excess revenue.
We get to that on the next column down. So
Oh,
the
okay.
first line is the lapsing expense of your operating budget, 291,775.
Yeah,
And then we had proposed a budget for revenues. Those numbers came in 77,335, higher than what we anticipated. So the
okay,
combined total gives the unassigned fund balance surplus that will lapse if you do nothing with it from expenses and revenues for $369,110.
Mhm.
Okay, so then the next line, the board looked at the tax rate setting from 2020 and noticed that what we had in surplus was actually like 4.7%, if I remember right.
That's
And the board decided that you asked me to increase the difference up to the 5% range, so of that 369,110, I need to set aside $67,918 to bring the surplus up from last year's budget up to 5%, because it was 4.6. And then along with the increase for 2021, which is 55,046, the combined 55,046 plus the 67,918 gives us a usable number of 122,964, which should technically, theoretically, give you the 5% from last year's budget, which we were shy of, plus we're covering the increase from the proposed 2021 budget. So we will need to, of that 369, set aside 122,964 of our lapsing surplus to cover and put us at a 5% retainage for old year and new year. So that leaves us with 246,146. Board asked me, and I apologize, I didn't fix that, Article 8 should be Article 4. That's the operating budget for the warrant. The proposed budget of 2,713,248, less the entire remaining surplus, 246,146, plus you offset the projected revenues of 1,097,432, and the amount to raise from taxes is 1,369,670. You multiply that by the, your assessment, you round it to the dollar, and it's $3.47 for just the operating budget alone. Then everything that follows below is your warrants from taxes. Each item is reflected in that same column in cents. So if all the warrants pass, it'll be a 64-cent increase. So that, along with the operating budget of $3.47, you're looking at proposed estimated tax rate for the municipal government line of $4.11. Last year, with the reval numbers and the increases of the assessment, it actually reduced our projected operating budget for the town to $3.80, so we're looking at a projected increase of 31 cents if you go with this format.
We were gonna use about, we were thinking of taking $100,000, or close to that, and applying it towards the tax rate, as I recall. Some of the,
She's applied it all with this form.
you applied it all
Yeah.
with this formula?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And that's what I understood the board to
Yep.
say, remove what we need to retain the 5%, and then you see what the remaining surplus will do to the operating budget.
There we go.
Where's our budget? Our budget is 306 higher. Budget increase is 55,000, other warrants is 251. So there's a total on your right-hand column of 306,000. Right?
Where are you looking here?
On the top right-hand corner,
Yep,
your budget increase
yep,
from last year is 55,000.
yep, and on other warrants, that's
Your
just,
other warrants is 251,000, that must be these warrants right here.
correct, everything that's in the middle column
Okay,
towards
so
the
your increase, your total increase should be 306,000. Well, if you look over on your left-hand column, your total lapping unassigned fund balance is 369,000.
But that's before the amount that you want me to retain for the
Reserve, what is reserve?
Yeah,
reserve.
Listen, you don't put the 55,000 in both columns.
No, that's just tracking what the
Right,
differences
so
are.
if you take the 306,000
Yeah,
and you take the 369 minus 306, and then you took the 67,000 that you're trying to hold for your 5%,
you actually have to hold 122.
you're increasing the budget by 55,000 over here, and then you're putting it back in. Your positive and negatives aren't right, you're adding that 55,000 back in twice. You're increasing your budget over here on the right, and you're adding it in over here again on your left. You can only add it in one column.
But this is what happened when we didn't allocate the increase
Right,
from,
but it's the increase in budget, you need 5% more of that 55,000. You don't need to add the 55,000 in.
you're saying,
Your DRA is 5% of your overall budget, your
Right.
budget increased by 55%.
Is
So you
six-
need
is
5% of that 55,000, you don't need the whole 55,000 over there. You
okay.
follow me?
So you're saying that 55,000 should only be 5%?
Yes, of that, yeah.
Okay,
See what I mean, you're taking it away and you're adding it in, so it's added twice in your calculation here. Cause if
Okay.
you take your overall numbers, Lee, and you come down the bottom, you have more revenue almost than you do tax increase, so you should be much closer down the bottom to almost 0% if you use the whole amount.
Well, another 50,000 would be another 12 cents on it, so it brings it less than 20
Yes,
cents.
yeah,
so you're saying $3,000 is what I should be reserving for the 5%?
that's right, it should be added to your DRA amount of 67, that's why we rounded that up to 70,000 last week when we
Oh,
looked at
okay,
the number.
all right, no, I misunderstood you, I thought you wanted to use.
So when you look at 70,000 even, Lean, it would take care of that $55,000 for an increase in their DRA to keep it at 5%.
Okay, then I can update this pretty quick if you want to move to the basket and then we can look at it.
Yeah, that'd be good. Now, I'm just gonna review one other thing with you while we're here.
Yep,
We're gonna take total absent unassigned surplus balance of 369,
correct,
110, okay? Now, to make it easy, we're gonna take 70,000 from that,
correct,
minus 70,000.
yep,
Put that right into the.
You're gonna be at 300,000 just about. Now, if you look at your total increased budget and your other warrants, you're at 306,046.
right,
When
and
you come down the bottom here, you should be at $6,000 difference when you apply the total.
is that what you want me to do? So when I adjust that number,
Yeah.
70,000, the surplus is gonna be 299,110.
Yes,
And where do you want me to apply that?
if you
To
look
the-
at,
Just
if
the
you look
operating
at,
budget?
if you look at your operating budget right
Yeah.
here, less surplus, put it right there in that yellow
Yeah,
line.
299,110,
And then everything else should follow down through with your
and
numbers.
you're gonna leave the warrants as they stand.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me just make that quick adjustment.
55, it's gonna be like 6 cents at most.
So
Yeah,
if we-
cause you're adding 55 to that number
Exactly.
almost, yeah.
That still brings it brings
Yeah.
it down to the 20s.
I think we did that several other years where we put it in both sides here, and so if she followed that other formula, it probably did the same thing.
Alright,
So you can take time, Lean, and we'll go through the basket and we'll come back to that.
if you want it clean, a clean copy, I can do it on the calculator, but it'd be nice to see it.
Yeah, go ahead and go ahead and punch it in, we got plenty of
Okay.
stuff to go.
Okay, very good, I'll be right back.
6 cents would bring about 25 cents.
Yeah, the numbers, when you show it both ways like that, and the way this tracks it, I wouldn't do it like this, I would track one as your positive, one as your negatives, and I would have it simpler,
Right.
but because of how she has to put this in a format for the town.
She took the full 55, it should have been 5%
Yes.
55.
In the end, wouldn't it be just 5% of whatever 2021's operating budget is? Just to,
Yes, yeah,
to look and see if your numbers coincide?
yeah, instead of adding it and putting the
Yeah,
55 separate,
right.
just look at this year's operating budget minus the revenues.
Right, that's what I say.
Surplus.
If she did the 5% there, that would be her correct.
So actually, because we figured it conservative, with the unanticipated revenues, along with this last, issue that we had with Kimball Pond,
Would be,
that money going into that,
yeah,
when, in October, you could actually adjust this down so that the taxes will be lower than they were last year.
Yeah,
In
or-
reality.
or we could make them flat with last year if we apply that money now, Bob, that we just received.
It would only take, let's assume we only use half of it.
Yeah.
Say
Well,
half of it, that'd be
the thing is,
50,000.
you wanna see how the other numbers are tracking during the summer,
Right.
so that we're not over, rooms and meals tax, for
Yeah.
instance, may be different than what we were
We
anticipating.
can always look like heroes
So-
one more year, Mike needs to get voted back in.
You gotta pay, you have to pay to dispose of the building.
Huh?
You have to pay to get rid of the building.
That's right, yeah.
You know,
That's
Yeah,
what
those
I'm
gonna
saying.
be all
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
But
It's
that's
not
so
full.
minor compared to, but the thing is that it's easier to adjust it in October,
Right.
knowing all our numbers and doing that, and I think you might be able to do even a little bit better and still have a reserve.
Yep,
In other words, don't lower it, create too much, lower it some, but not crazy.
Right.
now, when you say doing it in October, that's not our new budget season.
No, but that's,
second half of
before
the
you
year.
go to the DRA,
Yep,
to set taxes, we can use unanticipated revenues that came in during the year to reduce the taxes. So, that's why you.
but it
would do
hasn't
the
been a
first part
normal
of
practice that
October.
I've seen yet,
No,
right? Have you ever, you've never been on a board where you did it in October yet, have you, Bob?
No, cause we always had enough coming in,
Right,
and we didn't have to do that. In fact, there's a couple of years we did it where we had enough money to even address all of the warrant articles, if you remember.
yep. Yeah, we did, last year, we did every warrant article and zeroed it out. We were just doing some talking about using the revenue we just got from Kimball Pond, whether we use it now or use it in October, cause I said, I've never seen a board use it in October yet, Lean, so.
Before this board, they used it, that's when we did it all the time. But now the setting of the tax rate has shifted a little bit. You don't go into a meeting, you don't discuss it like what you're doing now. So you have to actually be prepared and discuss it beforehand so that you know that, you know, that's what you wanna do.
Right.
I don't know.
She's got it, so we may as well finish out.
Mixed feelings though, because, some people wanna know why do you do that at the tax rate and then raise it initially, you know what I mean? It just,
Thank you.
Right. Well, this year, we have a little bit of a reason only because with COVID coming, we wanna make sure that our anticipated revenues come
come
in.
in, yep.
anticipated revenues coming.
Anticipated revenues come in, so,
And that's what the DRA warned us, is that it could affect our revenues in 2020.
okay, this is what I wanted to see.
$71.
Yeah, see how she did the 79?
Sure.
That's what we talked about last week, Lean, that looks perfect, so then you got 299
Thank you.
minus the 306, you can see the difference there.
Yeah, I couldn't, okay. But this is what you were looking for. And you do not want, you're not interested in our projected revenues as we set them and discussed the 1,097,432 is what you wanna work with to offset the operating budget.
Yeah.
Leave it as it is. And even though you know that you just received money from a claim, you do not wanna include it in this,
Well, not yet, Lean, but this is what we have to think about this week, I guess.
okay.
Yeah.
So we have this week to think about
And
whether
the
we wanna
issue-
use part of
The issue
it.
is, I think Dave brought up already, that we don't know how the revenue's gonna be for the rest of the year.
Right.
Come fall, we may have to do some adjustments.
Fortunately for you, for this board, we have been working really hard to increase our surplus so that we're almost where we need to be, $500,000. But that is not, it's a drop in the bucket now if you have to,
Lean, you had printed out earlier today for me, I don't see them in here, but you,
I think they're in that, one of those
They're in here?
folders, yeah,
okay. We'll bring that up later then at that point.
okay.
I asked Lean to print the last 5 years of our surplus so we could track it and look at it, because I know that the usable amount when I became selectman was only 27,000 in there that wasn't set aside for pre-existing warrants that were already in place. And so we increased it, you know, up to 400 and some thousand the very next year, and then we've added, you know, 25, 55,
And
75.
we've kept with the recommendation of the DRA.
Right, so
Yeah.
I wanted to follow that as a board so we could look at it and see it increasing or how we've leveled that off. So I like this, it's a lot cleaner to look at, Lean.
Okay,
So the 2,713,000 is our total budget minus our total surplus.
yeah,
And then you took the projected revenues out of there, and then we see, our total budget.
Which is 334 tax rate.
yeah.
If we didn't have any warrants, we'd be golden.
You know, something I just can't get out of my head, Lean, I'm looking at the increase of the budget up here in the top right is 55,000.
Yep,
Our total warrants are 251,000.
yep,
So our total on our budget, including our warrant, on this over last year's is 306,000.
right. What you're
Okay.
looking at is, for the $3.34 is just the operating budget alone, but it includes, what's part of the tax rate is $4.20, which includes warrants. So even though I'm breaking it out here,
Now,
two
listen to me
pieces,
though,
yep,
tell me what I'm seeing wrong.
yep,
Our budget increase over last year's budget's 55,000.
mm-hmm,
Looking at top right, our total warrants are 251,000.
that's correct.
So our total increase over last year's budget's 306,000. Total increase over last year's budget, follow my wording, is 306,000, just as you have it drawn.
Right,
If you're taking 299,000 away from that,
mm-hmm,
you're only leaving $7,000 to be taxed on. How are you coming up with 18 cents on $7,000?
$3.09.
budget doesn't include the warrants.
It does include,
No, it lists them here just strictly as a total, but it doesn't add the warrants until you're looking at the 64 cents.
look it up here in your top right.
Yep,
Our budget's 55,000 over last year.
mm-hmm,
Oh, you get,
Our warrants is 251,000, leaving $306,000. If you take our total surplus now and take 299,000 away from that, leaves you about $7,000.
but you have to look at the total number, both operating budget and warrants.
Our revenues are that much less than what net last year then.
Last year, it's 100, was it 100,000? We were very conservative over last year.
I see.
Last year,
revenues,
we
I see
had
what you're
one,
saying.
You see what I'm saying? There's $7,000 spread, give or take.
Lean, can I explain it a different way?
yep,
On the upper right-hand corner, you have 55,
mm-hmm,
then you add other warrants for 251.
correct.
So those other warrants are all the warrants we're talking
From
about.
taxes that have to be raised.
So the
from
total
tax.
expense over last year was 306, would you agree with that?
No, because I have to look at the warrants from last year and see what those, I think last year that was 400 and something for the warrants.
Yeah, what does last year's warrants have to do with
No,
this year's
right,
warrants?
but I'm just looking at the total budget right now would be 306, 0430, if all warrants passed.
Correct.
And so we're talking about a surplus of 299, is what Dave is saying. 299 from 306 is 7,000.
Right,
And how does you get 18 cents with $7,000? That's what Dave's saying.
we have less projected revenues.
That's what I was saying. It's-
The revenues last year was 1,147,000, that's where.
So our
actually-
decrease in revenues is where you're coming up with the percentage
Yep,
difference.
if that stayed the same from year to year, then we would be okay, but it's not. We're going
The
conservative.
way this spreadsheet moves stuff around like this,
Mhm,
it doesn't really enact, I know you have to do it this way for your accounting,
right,
but the way that this throws this around, it's hard to follow down through like I would normally do
So-
accounting.
the only way I can get it on one sheet, so what you're saying is, if you had seen what we had projected for revenues.
What I
in
like
one
to see
column-
is budget last year, budget this year.
Yep,
Okay, then I'd like to see budget increase over last year.
and then
Then I'd like
revenue,
to see warrants this year and last year. Then I'd like to see the DRA last year and this year.
yep,
And then I'd like to see
And
the
the revenues.
revenues this year and last year.
yep,
And then I'd like to see the bottom line. But
okay,
where this is,
It's she's got the information there, but it just looks like we're,
okay.
We're at
It's because you're
7,000.
missing all the differences
Right.
from last year for the revenues.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the big piece.
so I think if you just did, not so much this, I know you have to keep this format for
Yeah.
when you go to your accounting.
Yep,
Cause I talked to you about changing this format before and it doesn't
Yeah.
work. But if you did a simpler format for us to see, so we can look and say, oh, here, it's our revenues,
okay, so you wanna see everything that changes from prior year to this year?
Yeah, and that just makes it easier for us to follow, and I don't really, I like this page because we can see the warrants here,
Yep,
but we just need the total warrants when you do that cover page,
okay,
You wanna
Good
dumb
one,
it down, huh, Dave?
Huh?
You wanna dumb it down?
no, really, exactly, he adds that information so we can see from
he
20
wants to
to.
compare prior
Yeah,
year.
no,
Right.
I
Now,
get
the
it, I
work,
get it.
the report that comes out of the computer has those two comparisons, you can see them on the 9-page report that you have,
Yeah,
what we budgeted from last year and what we have for actual and what we have for proposed.
yeah, I would like a simpler format that we can look at quick every year, so it's, we always do this triangle every year when we come to this budget, and I would like a simpler one that, oh,
All
this
right,
is where
I'll
we
work
are.
on that. I can work on that.
Let me grab that other one, while we're on this subject, let's get this out of the way, cause this is kind of part of the budget here, and
Which one's that? The,
the printouts I had to do,
oh, for the tax warrant?
here they are.
Yeah, there should be 5 years there.
Okay. I asked her to do the rainy day fund, give or take, what we wanna call it for the 5%. And, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, and 2015. And I'm gonna give this to you guys. Now, remember when we're looking at this DRA amount, not all this amount that we have set aside is rainy day fund. Some of this money that's set aside is part of the warrants. But I wanna be able to follow our increase, how we did it, and I'll bring this over to you afterwards, Bob. So if you look here, my 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. What I didn't know from Lean is how it ever went down.
Some of the warrants were expended,
Yeah, it must have been,
right,
that the warrants were over the expenditures, so we've been keeping it close.
right,
And we're adding 70 to this, so we're gonna bring right up to stuff with our warrants this year.
totally agree.
So, what I want to be able to do is always follow this.
Is there any warrants that goes over several years, that's what we're talking about, that's
Right.
subtracted out.
I have it print them out, Bob. If you remember back when we started as selectmen, if you took our warrants out of this, we had like $27,000 left of actual
Correct.
rainy day. And we brought it right up, and then we've been keeping it up. And because our warrants came out of here, and some of them older warrants came out, it brought it down a little bit,
Right.
so we're gonna be adding 70 to that, which will bring it to the true 5%. And we'll be just over 500,000 in there, so I had to print those just so we could follow that, because it's,
I'll give you a list of the, non-lapsing warrants, of what's still outstanding. There isn't a lot left up there.
but, you know, going back to look at those prior years, it's the only way we can follow that and see that as a board, we've been doing our job to keep that rainy day fund in there. And I wanted to remind the board that during these type of years, as COVID, the state and the governor and the federal government has given us use during COVID, if we needed to tap into those funds to keep our town government running, we can. Okay, Bob, so. And where we don't have a lot of bonds in this town, you know, 5% is actually, pretty good for this town to keep in there, because we don't have a lot of other issues that possibly could come up, you know, hopefully, knock on wood. Well, thanks, Lean, all that hard work, I think paid off, and this makes it clearer to see. So I think if we just add those in the revenue and just go down through those,
I'll add the revenues to that, yep.
yeah, I think that's great, thanks for all the hard work on that. Do you have anything else, Lean, that you wanted to talk to the board about on that?
Nope. I hope to have clean copies of everything
I
for
talked
you
it to death, huh?
early in
No, but the bottom
early
line-
next week, because your public hearing is,
We're talking about 18 cents increase if all the warrants pass.
Yeah,
That's pretty
pretty
good,
minor.
yeah.
And if you take 18 times our tax rate,
and you're not taking under advisement, new construction increases our revenue, our
Right.
tax
Right,
revenue.
which would be unanticipated.
Last
towards the
year,
end of the
we increased because of the revale, 37 million. Typically, a slow year has been like 2 million. So
Lean,
that
if you
would,
take the 18 times our tax rate times 100,000,
tax rate is
it's at 3.34 or something.
20. No, you have to, it's 22,
0.18 times 3.34, right? Is that right?
that's just the operating budget, 6 cents? What are you looking for, Dave?
How,
I was taking the 18 cents
Yeah?
times our tax rate times $100,000, so you know how many
Oh, cut times
dollars you'd add
100,000.
times.
Okay.
If your house is a $400,000 house, you know it went up $80. Well, I
Three
guess-
dollars and 99 cents times about 100,000, you said?
yeah.
$39.96.
So about $40 per every $100,000 you have on your house, it went up.
that's very.
Yeah.
So, just to run the number, Bob, so we can kind of know where we're.
Right,
And the thing is, by holding some of the other, the unanticipated revenue conservative, we'll have to readdress this in October based on lack of revenues or plentiful revenues.
Right,
And so that's an unknown we have
Yeah.
to face.
yeah.
So Leo, just to go back to like last week's remark, we held off some of our construction possibilities for that town hall building to do the upgrades of the building. Not knowing how our revenues would come out with COVID-19, and what we're really doing is giving it back to the taxpayer at this point of the year, only for the fact that we knew we could run the town government for that, just like we're kinda gonna hold on to a little bit of that money from the Kimball Pond Road to make sure that we can run through this year. And if we end up with excess revenues next year, we'll do the same thing, hopefully.
right. But you also have some projects coming up this year.
Right,
That need attention, and
yep,
we don't know what those costs are gonna
And
be.
we deferred it this year because of COVID.
yep. Okay, I think we're gonna go into the mailbox items. Lee, do I need any of this, or some of that is mailbox, I signed it, right? Okay. We have a thank you card here, to the select board, from Mary Gerard. Pass that around. Her dad passed away and we sent her a card last week. We're gonna put this item off, this was the, Conservation Board property for the, Society of Protection of New Hampshire Forest for next week. And this is part of that same paperwork. We're gonna just put our notes on here, this was the $9 revised budget Lean already told us about for the library.
Yeah, I just asked her to put it in writing so it's easier to track.
Just for a public announcement, I know the select board's seeing this, but we did receive the check for Kimball Pond Road, and the total is $93,396.68, of which, as we talked about earlier tonight, we will raise the building and demolish the 3 buildings on site. And, that cost will obviously come out of this section, and the balance will go into the excess revenues, and in October, we'll determine how to apply the balance of it, I would think.
Does anyone know if, building department has
Go
made,
sign that one, Mike.
has made the,
You know, that other one you just signed.
asbestos testing, or how does this?
Give me
I'm
that
gonna
one,
give you an
the
update on
card.
It's work in progress.
I'll give you this also.
Okay.
Hang on, oh, did I get that?
Joe Marie's been working with them on that.
So I met with the, company that does the testing for the asbestos out there Monday, as we approved last week. I got there at 10:01 and he was already done. He was able to enter the property and get the samples he needed. There were very few samples needed, kinda like we had said. And, he said Monday or Tuesday of this week, we will have the report back. Once we get the report back, if there is any, he did take roofing samples of the double coverage as we spoke about. and mostly the flooring samples, I think, in the kitchen area. And he said if there is a need to remove any of that, he does have companies who he works with that he can recommend. And he said the nice part about that is if you're raising the building, you don't have to worry about being careful or covering it or putting plastic up. So he said it should be very reasonable to get it removed if there is any need. And so we'll have that report next
It's that
Monday.
viscose tile, is that what they have in the kitchen?
I think it was a laminate, like the old roll laminate, some of it has asbestos in it.
Okay.
There were no
Cause
tile.
usually the tile has asbestos in it.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that, but,
Yeah, anything before 78, I think.
yeah. You gave me that last signature back,
Yeah.
I've already flipped that, okay. So that's the case with that. Jeff did tell me that the power got shut off and the meter is taken out there, so that portion of it's all set. And the other thing we talked about is, when he does do the demo work out there, I said, what are you gonna be doing with the foundation? And, his thoughts were we were gonna collapse the foundation in, and I suggested, why don't we take that foundation and fill it in and leave the old foundation right there in place so that you can always have that as like a historical house site and not try and fold it into the ground. So it would show the foundation, but it would all be full, and so he thought that was a great
How
idea.
old is the house?
I wanna say that one is back to the thirties.
Yeah, stone foundation, some stone.
So it's nice, and there is granite on the top, so
Yeah.
it would look nice, and I think it would,
Okay.
you know, it'll all be flat ground there other than that foundation. And, it'd leave a historical spot instead of dumping it into itself, cause there's a lot of good stonework there and stuff, so. So that's what we talked about, he thought that was a great idea, and he's got some extra gravel around town, it wouldn't be too expensive. This is gonna be
So the demolition will be essentially, after any hazardous waste will be internally done by the town.
that's right, and that would be coming up fairly quickly.
And the thing is, I thought the transfer station had a roll-off we could use.
They do. And he's gonna schedule that with Woody once.
Once we get the
it
green
gets
light.
closer. I'll put this in the mailbox too, but this is reporting on COVID-19 response for the grant report template. Lean had filled this out. We've all signed the top, but that's what she sent in.
That was part of the requirement for accepting the grant, was to submit a final report.
I'll put the lights in here.
Just want to acknowledge on the report, I thought the town clerk brought some humanity to the report. She put some honest feeling in there.
I signed this a little earlier tonight. This is, the chair of the board had to sign this. This was for the milfoil grant. And Lean is squared away and filled out the paperwork.
So the original grant was $25.40 for the milfoil.
Yeah,
The representative, Amy Smagula, is that her name? She was able to find another diver for substantially less, so the whole warrant impact and, grant is reduced to $850.
yeah, so our total cost was $21.25, the total grant was $850. Our local cost was $12.75.
And that will come from the, capital reserve that we have set up for that.
Perfect, so that's all signed and set aside.
And just for the record, that means 2125. If they don't spend the full amount, it goes back into the as a grant into that fund.
It stays there, yeah, we don't withdraw it.
Right. Lean, this was up here, but I'm not sure this was meant to be up here.
That's just the reconciliation reports, that just requires board signature. At your leisure, you can do that.
Oh, I've
That's
become
what-
the only one left here.
It's the first 6 months. That's been slow going, cause I've been shorthanded in the office, but we're making progress, and it's been a
The newer treatment for the milfoil has been a godsend.
Oh, it has.
Only because
That
it's
multi-year?
reduced that amount quite a bit over the year.
But I think it's important that we stay part of the grant, keep our foot in the door.
But you know, you're going on your third year now with this,
Well, do you wanna date your line?
I thought I did all the way down, oh, that's the only one. I'll take it off.
Okay, I have one other item to bring before the board. We had left kind of a, Linda pulled me aside and asked me to bring this up to find out which way we wanna go. Are we gonna start appointing the welfare director, or are we gonna leave that as an elected? We had made a motion,
No, that was a warrant last year and it passed, so it is now an appointed position.
yep, so that's Article 18. Selectmen shall appoint
Yep,
as an employee of the town.
correct, so no longer an elected position. And you can make that appointment yearly, every 3 years. I know that the,
So term is ending for her on March 1st, 2021.
correct,
So we need to make a decision on that very shortly.
If
For
we wanna
the-
keep,
the
hire her
term
as-
length or just,
The term length and or keeping her and doing it yearly or every 3 years.
I think you do the same thing for the inspector, right? He's an appointed.
Which inspector?
Mike Cummings, you appoint him to the.
No, he's an employee.
Yeah. I'll have a few of these for you.
Signatures, Bob?
Yeah, you missed these three.
I only signed the top.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like
separate
random.
months in there.
No, this one isn't done either.
Yeah, you just sign the top one, not all.
Oh, you don't sign them all?
No, you have to sign them all.
Okay.
So,
Lean, I'm gonna put this in the mailbox for next week or further on.
And that's the appointment?
Yeah, by March, we've gotta try and decide on that, okay, Mike, in case I forget. And Bob?
And Linda's
Yeah.
looking for a term length, is that it, period? Is that what
She's looking for the term length and to do, whether we're gonna do Jeannie over again in that position, or if you're gonna do somebody else.
to be
Okay,
determined,
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's coming up,
March.
in March, so,
after town meeting, yep.
okay. I'll keep this here.
And the election thing, are you gonna bring that up? I thought you were supposed to bring that up,
The-
special election,
The what?
a special election?
Oh, yeah, where was that in there? I thought that was in the
Emails,
mailbox.
right?
In your, yeah, it's in your
Yeah.
mailbox.
We have to make a motion to accept the milfoil grant, correct?
You should, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I have that grant there, we'll do that. I didn't see that election when I went through here, Lee.
Yeah, you gave that to me, you said put it in
I
your
did.
folder.
that big letter in the top of the New Hampshire statute.
Yep, it's a law, whatnot.
I don't think it's,
I know you guys read it, well, let me look at.
you've got the meeting minutes there, you wanna look through that? Wasn't in these budgets, was it, Lee? No?
Nope.
This
You don't
is
have it
just
in your
the-
basket, because one of you guys is reading it,
Might be over on Bob's table still, where Bob was sitting.
Oh, can we run down there and look?
Yeah, if you would like.
I'll run down there.
it's right here,
You got it?
this was paper clip.
Oh, okay.
This one, yeah.
Okay. We've got a state representative, that has resigned. So Linda printed up this in reference to the multi-town or multi-ward district. A vacancy in the office of the state representative shall be filled following the provisions of RSA 655 655:81 and RSA 655:82 by a special election if a selectman of a town or city or any ward in said district so request of the governor or council. So if we weren't a multi-town with Bo, we would have been able to just have a vote on it. And she does have a nomination on there for this. So, Linda shared the name with us earlier today. Remember it?
It's not the same person that signed up for.
Oh, you were talking about JR maybe.
No, that was from Monterey.
Oh, that was from Monterey,
He expressed
okay.
interest in Monterey, he'd fill in if we needed him.
Well, we should try and work out this special election date with Bo. Do you want me to take care of it, Mike, or would you like to work on this as a,
I don't mind, I'll give a Paul a call.
or Bob? One of you guys wanna work on it? You had already done some work on this
Well, I
already?
got wind of it, the Democratic Party contacted me on this,
Okay,
so I was aware of it was coming down. Okay, I'll give Bo a call. This
and
is
just see how they wanna handle it and see
We'll
if.
get some, maybe we'll get a slate of dates that they, 2 dates, a
Linda
primary and
seemed
secondary.
uncertain if the two towns could vote on it together and not have a special election or not, but maybe we can get some clarification on that RSA. It looks to me like we have to have a special election, but,
Well, the first thing that has to happen down the road is we may have to make a request to the governor or and the council.
yeah,
It could be anyone.
right,
And so, I'd say next week, when I get some information, we'll make a decision next week.
okay. Thanks for reminding me of that, Lee. Okay, I'm gonna open it back up for public comment.
You still wanna do the milfoil grant,
Oh, yeah, I do have to. I could put that in the envelope, I give back to Lee.
right? Is that in here?
The milfoil grant that I signed? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna read these amounts that I just previously read on there. The milfoil grant will be amended to a total cost of $21.25 with a grant award of $850. Total local cost of $12.75 to come out of the funds that are set aside for that. And the service provider she found was Ben Jones.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. There you go, Bob. Throw that back
Yeah.
over there. So we sign that, let's bring it back to the public, Leo.
Yeah, I do, actually, just, is that door supposed to be locked every Thursday?
No, that should be open when it's a public meeting.
Oh, well, no, well, every Thursday?
Just during our meeting. we-
Yeah, okay, cause it's always locked, I always have to look, run back and forth and find somebody.
I'll try and make sure when
Yeah,
we
just-
start unlocking
Just,
that.
yeah, I guess, I know it's just being overlooked, I just wanna remind you, know,
Yeah.
Cause if it gets really cold, then I gotta run back and forth.
Anybody else have anything for public? Woody? Okay, I guess I'm gonna make a motion to go into non-public. Per RSA 91-A-3